From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
The program I shall propose will emphasize this cooperative approach to help that 1/5 of all American families with incomes too small to even meet their basic needs.
50 years ago this week, President Lyndon Johnson launched his war on poverty, which led to Medicaid, Medicare, subsidized housing, and Head Start. 5 decades later, many say another war on poverty is needed. We'll speak with Peter Edelman, author of So Rich, So Poor, Why It's So Hard to End Poverty in America. Then, as al-Qaeda-linked militants take the key Iraqi city of Fallujah, the Obama administration moves to help arm Iraqi forces.
We're accelerating our foreign military sales deliveries and are looking to provide an additional shipment of Hellfire missiles as early as this spring. And these missiles are one small element of that holistic strategy, but they have been proven effective at denying ISIL the safe haven zones that it has sought to establish in western Iraq.
But first, we look at the traffic that could jam the presidential aspirations of New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, the Republican frontrunner in the 2016 race. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. At least 13 people have been killed and another 30 wounded in a suicide attack on a police station in Baghdad. The bombing comes as the Iraqi government's preparing for an offensive to retake the city of Fallujah from Sunni militants. Fighters from the al-Qaeda-linked Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant seized parts of Fallujah as well as Ramadi last week. The Iraqi Red Crescent says over 13,000 families have fled Fallujah to escape the violence in the past few days. The United Nations is warning Anbar faces a critical humanitarian situation with 250 people killed already this month. Iraq is facing its worst violence in 6 years, with over 7,000 dead in 2013. We'll have more on Iraq and Fallujah later in the broadcast. In Syria, anti-government rebels have forced an al-Qaeda-linked group to withdraw from its base in the northern city of Aleppo. Clashes among rebels have left hundreds of people dead in recent days, marking the deadliest infighting between the groups since the Syrian conflict began. The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant was initially allied with other anti-government groups, but tensions among rebel factions erupted last week. The rebels who seized control of the group's Aleppo base Wednesday found more than 40 bodies inside, sparking concerns the group is executing prisoners as they retreat. The Syrian government, meanwhile, says rebels have attacked a pair of storage sites for the regime's chemical weapons stockpile. The news comes days after the first shipment of weapons was loaded onto a ship to begin the disarmament process agreed to last year. At the United Nations, Sigrid Kaag, the top official overseeing the removal of Syria's chemical weapons, says he expects the Assad regime to meet a June deadline for the stockpile's complete destruction.
I didn't say we're on schedule, but I think what we talked about is a collective expectation by the Security Council, of course, full support of the joint mission, that looking at the end of June deadline, that there's no reason to assume that delays should occur, all things being equal. We also have to remember Syria as a country at war, security situation can shift from day to day. But everything is ready, investment is made, and the authorities have shown that first movements have started to happen.
The president of the Central African Republic is reportedly preparing to step down after weeks of violence that have left over 1,000 dead. Michael Jatodia could make the announcement today at a regional summit in Chad. Tens of thousands have been displaced since violence between Christian and Muslim militants exploded last month. At a camp housing over 100,000 internally displaced people, the local coordinator for Doctors Without Borders warned of a humanitarian crisis.
It was very urgent to start because it's very contagious, and this population is living in very dire hygienic conditions. The density of the camp is also impressive, and in these kind of camps, it's a very high risk of epidemic.
The Obama administration's launched an internal investigation into a drone strike that reportedly killed 12 people in Yemen last month. The victims were on their way to a wedding when they were apparently mistaken for an al-Qaeda convoy. NBC News reports the strike was carried out by the Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC. The White House probe comes after the human rights group Reprieve released new video showing the victims' burned corpses lined up on the ground for burial. In a statement, Reprieve said, quote, "In bombing a wedding, the U.S. government has demonstrated that they either don't know or don't care who they were targeting. As a result, 12 innocent lives have been lost and many more destroyed. We can only hope the internal investigation is robust and that it results in needed policy change and reparation for those affected," said Reprieve. Utah has told hundreds of LGBT couples their marriages will not be recognized after the Supreme Court reinstated a ban earlier this week. Nearly 1,000 LGBT couples got married after a federal judge struck down the state's ban on same-sex marriage late last month. But the Supreme Court halted the marriages on Monday, pending Utah's appeal of the judge's ruling. On Wednesday, Utah Governor Bob Herbert told state agencies Tuesday not to recognize any same-sex marriages that took place in the 2 weeks when they were allowed. The case could end up before the Supreme Court. The death toll from record-shattering cold across the United States has risen to at least 21. Several of the victims are homeless people who froze to death. Frigid temperatures are beginning to ease after the blast of Arctic air envelops swaths of the Midwest, Northeast, and even the Deep South. You can go to our website at democracynow.org to look at the connection between the deep chill and climate change. A political controversy surrounding New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has grown into a scandal after it emerged a top aide deliberately ordered traffic delays to exact political revenge. Newly released documents show Christie's deputy chief of staff, Bridget Ann Kelly, personally ordered the closure of lanes leading to the George Washington Bridge to punish the mayor of Fort Lee for declining to endorse Christie's bid for re-election. In an email to another Christie appointee and high school friend, David Adelstein, Kelly wrote, quote, "Time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee," unquote. The closures cost massive traffic jams with just one lane operational over a 4-day period. This was an email to David Wildstein. The scandal could threaten Christie's expected candidacy for the Republican presidential nomination in 2016. In a statement, Governor Christie denied involvement, saying he was, quote, "outraged and deeply saddened by his deputy's actions." We'll have more on the story after headlines. The White House is facing questions over a new memoir from former Defense Secretary Robert Gates that criticizes President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden. Gates writes Obama never believed in his own policy of escalating the Afghanistan war with a surge of 30,000 troops. Gates also calls Biden, quote, "wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue over the past 4 decades. On Wednesday, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney defended Biden.
The President and the rest of us here simply just disagree with that assessment. As a senator and as a Vice President, Joe Biden has been one of the leading statesmen of his time, and he has been an excellent counselor and advisor to the President for the past 5 years. He's played a key role in every major national security and foreign policy debate and policy discussion in this administration, in this White House.
As it faced questions over Biden, the White House allowed news crews to take pictures of his weekly lunch with President Obama for the first time. In his book, Robert Gates also reports both Hillary Clinton and Obama admitted that their opposition to a U.S. troop surge in Iraq was, quote, political in 2006. Over 100 people in New York, including 8 retired police officers and firefighters, have been charged in a suspected disability scam dating back over 2 decades. Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance says the accused made false disability claims, bilking taxpayers out of some $400 million.
1988, these men are charged with coaching hundreds and hundreds of individuals on how to convince the Social Security Administration that those individuals are unable to work at any job because they suffer a psychiatric condition and therefore are entitled to monthly disability payments. Now, It's a particularly cynical part of the charge scheme that approximately half of the defendants falsely claimed that their psychiatric disabilities were caused by their association with the terrorist attacks of September 11.
At least 2 people have died in a U.S. Navy plane crash off the coast of Virginia. The Navy says the helicopter was on a training mission when it crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. 2 of the 3 survivors are in stable condition while another is missing. The crash comes one day after 4 U.S. service members died in a helicopter crash in England. Norfolk Police Chief Bob Scully told local residents to stay away from the crash site until the wreckage is removed.
The ammunition that is scattered around the crash site came from the crashed aircraft. We do know exactly how much ammunition was on the aircraft, and we also know the nature of that ammunition. As I said before, the community do not need to be concerned about the fact that ammunition is scattered about that site, but that is with the caveat that they respect the cordons and don't go near the site until we have recovered each and every piece of ammunition.
Wednesday marked the 3rd anniversary of the Tucson, Arizona mass shooting that killed 6 people and wounded 13 others. The injured included former Democratic Congressmember Gabrielle Giffords, who suffered major head wounds and nearly lost her life. Giffords and her husband, Mark Kelly, have since founded a group to take on the U.S. weapons lobby and to campaign for gun control. On Wednesday, former Congressmember Giffords marked the anniversary by going skydiving. Giffords has previously skydived, but this was her first jump since the shooting. In an opinion piece, Giffords likened her difficult physical rehabilitation to the uphill battle for gun control, writing, quote, "I've seen grit overcome paralysis. My resolution today is that Congress achieve the same." And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.
I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily, independent, global grassroots news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org today. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.